Hey, Jordan, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Advisory Board podcast. So, guys, I've got Jordan Choo with me. Jordan, say hi.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I wanted to introduce Jordan because a lot of people, so marketing is critical right now in the franchising world. Jordan's the managing partner of Kogneta, and they do all sorts of digital marketing for in the franchising space. So I'll let him tell you more about him. But what we're going to talk about today is called closed loop marketing. And I'll also let him frame that up because he's the expert. But the reason you should care about what he says, he's been doing this for a long time. He's very savvy in the space, which is why I wanted to bring him on the show. Jordan, tell us a little bit more about you and your organization, what you guys do, and then maybe we can transition that into what is this? What is closed loop marketing, and why should someone be paying attention to this?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the introduction, Dave. So, as you know, my name is Jordan. I'm the managing partner of Kogneta. We are a remote first digital marketing agency that exclusively works with franchises, and we help them profitably and predictably grow. Been doing this for the past 5 years, absolutely loving it, being able to see, franchise systems, start off with very humble beginnings and just exponentially grow. And over the past few years, what we've been noticing is, there are a ton of franchises out there who want to grow rapidly and, more importantly, grow profitably. But the issue has always been not being able to tie your marketing dollars and your marketing channels back to revenue. So what we've been doing, and as you alluded to, Dave, is something called closing that loop, closing that marketing loop, and ensuring that all your systems from marketing perspective are speaking to each other so that you as a franchise system are actually able to drill down into, a specific campaign, a specific channel, a keyword, an ad, what have you, and be able to attribute from a dollar perspective, how much did you put in and how much did you actually get out of it?
Yeah, brilliant. I don't know how many times I've talked to franchise owners, franchise marketing directors, and CMOs that say, I ask them like, well, where are your leads coming from? They always know their lead sources. Well, most of them, not everything at the franchisee level. And I say, well, which ones are producing the best? Which ones have the highest lead conversion rates? And they usually do this. Well, we don't really know. We don't really know. Part of it is because they lose days of data visibility from the ZOR to Z. They have no idea what happens after they black box those leads and hand them off downstream. But the other part is, even if they did know, they don't know which ones convert. They don't know, at what rate. And so, I love what you're talking about. Let's dive into that, into closed loop marketing. Anything else they should know about you beforehand, why they should care before we jump in?
No, I think we covered everything. Let's dive into the weeds.
Yeah, please. So closed loop marketing, do you mind giving us an example? Like walk us from beginning to end of a lead journey for someone who's a prospect for a franchise company.
Yeah, sure. So, let's say I, Jordan, am looking for a cleaning company near me, as an example. So, I search online, I find Two Maids and a Mop, fantastic franchise system. I go to their website through, let's say, Google. I say, yeah, this looks like a fantastic franchise, fantastic cleaning company. I submit all my information and then I'm handed off to the franchisee. They come get, they come get my house cleaned, bada bing, bada boom. That's what I see from a consumer side. Now, what happens from an internal, from a franchisor side, is they're actually able to track, mostly using cookies, okay, Jordan came in from Google search. He searched this keyword. He landed on this specific landing page. And that data is actually passed from the website into your CRM as a system. So as I'm going through this sales process, as I'm having, your franchisees come in and clean my house, not just once, but probably multiple times, this data is actually being passed back from your CRM into your marketing systems. So you're able to see and attribute, okay, Jordan came from SEO, and he's a really good quality lead, versus maybe people coming from, let's say, Facebook, may not necessarily be quality leads, or their lifetime value could be significantly lower.
Right. Yeah. And let's explore that a little more, because one thing that we've been working on with several of our marketing partners is closing the loop So you can track, when you're doing SEO, you're gambling and guessing a little bit, and you're fine tuning, but you're still gambling and guessing. You're like, well, these keywords are performing at this level. My click-through rate, my conversion rates, my on targets it looks pretty good. But what you can't tell at the end of the day, in most cases with an open loop marketing system, is, well, if somebody clicks on move out clean, what's their lifetime customer value? Or if somebody clicks on this keyword right here, how likely are they to convert and buy from me? Because what you might be doing is getting high converting leads on the top of funnel that are almost 0% of them are actually buying from you at the end of the day. And so this is where the spaghetti on wall strategy comes from. Like, well, we're making money, so throw more spaghetti on the wall, but you can't make intelligent decisions about which keywords should I own, right? Which channels are producing the highest dollar and the most likely to convert, and all sorts of data like that, right? What would you add to that?
Totally. You know what? I'm so glad that you brought this up about lead quality. I cannot tell you how many times, Dave, where, from a marketing perspective, seeing amazing leads, like all these leads coming in for a really good cost per acquisition level. And then, we're speaking to the franchisors and the franchisees, and they're like, no, these leads are absolute garbage, right? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. They're all crap, mind my French. So by closing this loop, we can actually start differentiating leads and what we call sales qualified leads, right? Because not all leads that come into your system are equal, nor should they be treated equally, because some are more likely to convert rather than ones that aren't. And especially as we talked about, from a lifetime value perspective as well, which is a huge differentiating factor.
Totally agree. The one thing I'd add to that, as you said that, I started laughing because I worked at a company where we invested heavily in marketing. We had a very savvy CMO, and they started to produce tons of leads. Now, there are two parts of the equation when you talk about lead quality, right? Part of it is, it's being measured by conversion rates, and sometimes your salespeople suck, right? Sometimes your franchisees, they're not engaging over text, over email, over phone call in the first 3 to 4 minutes and converting that lead when they're ready to convert. They're letting it sit for 2 to 3 hours or 2 to 3 days in some cases, and then they're complaining upstream saying these are terrible leads. But it's because it was, let's say, a home advisor lead, and the guy sold to 4 people at a time. And by the time you call them, they've already booked the clean or even finished the clean, right? Like 4 other people are selling to that person. So it's lead quality. I think we got to be careful, just as we describe it. As long as you've got a solid automation engagement sequence on the back end to automate as much as you can that conversion process, now you level the playing field and you can truly measure which lead sources are producing more revenue. But I've also heard, in your position, you have clients that are probably like, these aren't great leads. And you're like, your franchisees haven't even called half of them, right? Which is tough.
Which is why, we have great partners like yourself and ClientTether, where we're actually able to see, this very important data of, some franchisees will inevitably be dropping the ball. So having great automated systems like this, perfect.
Yeah, thanks for the shameless plug. I appreciate that. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the next phase. So closed loop, I think we're really hitting hard on like why it's important. But what are some, if I build a closed loop system, what are some of the benefits I can pull out of that now? Like, how can it help me save money? How can it help me make more money? Like, how does it create actionable data for me?
Yeah, that great question. So from an analytics and insights portion, by closing this loop, you're actually going to gain this visibility on which channels are generating the most profit for you. So you're able to see, from a dollar and cents level, what is actually driving sustainable, profitable, long-term growth. Secondly, and also importantly, is that it's almost like a snowball, if you will, just rolling down the hill. Because as you gather more and more data, you're able to feed your marketing systems this data, and it becomes even more targeted. So I'll give you a perfect example here. Let's say you are doing Facebook ads right now. And you know what? You're targeting, let's say, everyone in the state of New York who has a house because you do house cleaning as a franchise system. Okay, you're probably generating a ton of leads. That's great. But you want to become more and more targeted with who that kind of perfect customer is. So what you're able to do with this closed loop marketing system is you're able to take the customers that you have and actually feed that data back into Facebook, with their contact information, right? Like name, email, phone number, and not just that, but their actual lifetime value. And what that information does with Facebook is you're actually able to tell, Facebook's advertising system, hey, target more people who look like my perfect customer. So what ends up happening is you're able to become more and more profitable and efficient with your marketing budget by targeting, your perfect customers rather than just everyone and anyone who may fit that role.
Yeah, that's genius. I was just working with our SEO guy on that just for our company. And we're talking about, we don't do Facebook, but we do. And it's funny because I've always been a skeptic, but I've seen it work so well. Like we had a client last year that he generated over $1 million of net new revenue just from his Facebook campaign. And that's when I realized I was wrong. But the lookalike structure, now you could do the same thing in Google as well, right? Not just in Facebook.
Yeah.
What do
So
they
you can do
call it?
that.
Is it called the lookalike, or what do they call that function of Google?
Yeah, so on Facebook it's lookalike. On Google it's similar audiences. So you'll occasionally hear that used interchangeably.
Okay, yeah, but unless you have the tail end data to show you which is my best audience, you can't make an intelligent. You're guessing at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly that. So just like by closing this system, there are just so many benefits to it that like I'm banging my head against the wall when I'm speaking with other franchisors that just don't see the value in it.
Yeah, you and me both sometimes. You and me both. Well, let's talk about some examples. So do you have any example of people that are doing it now within a non-closed loop? And this is probably not the best case to give a specific client name, but can you tell me then maybe somebody that started not and then they closed the loop and what the impact was?
Yeah, so we were working with a national B2B franchise. When we first came in, they were not doing any closed loop at all. They did not, they just didn't connect their CRM with, these other systems that they were doing. And, they were tracking performance. It wasn't too bad. We were generating some decent results. And then we're like, hey guys, let's at least test this out to gain more visibility, more insight into what your marketing campaigns are actually doing. So, we close that loop. And, ever since then, it's been like day and night, Dave. We've been able to get just mind-blowing insights into how their actual audience works and like which keywords actually move the needle, that like they've seen like triple digit improvement, not just in sales, but also in their cost per acquisition across the channels that we've been working on. It's been absolutely amazing.
That's fantastic. What's interesting is the world's shifting a little bit. It's pivoting. A lot of people are a little cash strapped, or they're being cash conscious. They want to be careful on the spend, but it's the wrong time to stop spending. And initially, when the pandemic first hit, a lot of people stopped spending and they cut themselves off at the knees for the next 6 months because they didn't have anyone in the queue when things reopened. But right now, with people being a little cost conscious, it feels like this is one of the smartest things you could do. And now I feel like I'm selling for you a little bit, but if I truly want to have a system that's constantly evolving so I can be smarter and smarter about my spend, is there any other way to do it? Or is it really is this kind of the blanket answer, close the loop so you can get the feedback you need to grow?
Yeah, you know what, Dave, you hit the nail on the head. And I hate saying this, but it's almost like a silver bullet type situation where, just making this shift helps you understand what is actually going on. It helps shift your mindset from, high level, okay, things are doing decent, to, oh my gosh, like we need to invest more money here. We need to move money away from there. And as you mentioned, people and franchises have become more cost conscious. So by doing this, you're able to just allocate funds in a more efficient manner, and you can really stretch your dollars further than you'd be able to unless otherwise.
Yeah, I got to share a quick story about this. It's funny because it's a B2B franchise system that we're working with in Canada. I met with them this morning, And I just asked him for feedback. How are things going? What's been the biggest success so far? I said, you know what? The biggest thing that's helped me the most so far is I was buying leads. They're doing Frandev. And he said, I've been buying this lead source for a while now. And all of a sudden, I could immediately visualize how many of those leads were actually converting and how many of them were bad quality leads. And I fired him yesterday. I fired him. And he said, Dave, it felt so good because I knew why I was firing them. I knew that the performance wasn't where I needed to be. And so now I can take that money and allocate it into a higher performing system. And I was like, dude, like this is exactly what every system needs to be doing right now is questioning everything. I tell my team, ask why, question everything, because even though we're good, the market's shifting every week. And so we need to make sure we're constantly evolving and meeting that new need, cutting off things that used to work great a year ago that now don't. You've got to constantly shift. And that made me laugh. But he didn't realize it wasn't a conscious effort of ours to say, close the loop in your marketing, but he started to do it on his own using the tools and made his own conclusions that were data driven.
Yeah. You know what, you bring up such a great point of, a source can be giving you 100 leads and 0 of them are qualified. And another source can be giving you 10 leads and all of them are qualified. Without closing this loop, you're immediately going to go to this, oh yeah, I'm getting 100 leads. I'm definitely going to reinvest more here. When the reality of it is no. You want this, you want to double down on these 10 sales qualified leads and just focus all of your effort into that rather than these crappy leads.
I've got to I won't name any names here because it wouldn't be very polite, but there's a pretty common home service lead generation platform. And we have the luxury of, we're seeing in our platform, what's the conversion rate by lead source, by franchisee across many, many franchise systems. Well, this particular lead source converts at about 11 to 12%. On the high, we have some clients because they're using automation, it's like 46%, but generally speaking, it's low. And it's expensive. And part of it is because of the way they parse out their leads and pimp them to 4 people at a time. Like it's really not helping the buyers. It's really helping the seller of the leads. And we've got another client that is the opposite. They're a partner of ours. They generate leads for home service, 1-to-1 ratio, but the clients don't know. And so sometimes I'll go into reports with people and say, tell me about that number right there. How happy are you with a 12% conversion rate? And they're like, oh, geez, like they don't even know. And like, no, but I get so many leads. They keep me really busy. I'm like, yeah, but how many of them are getting quotes? And then you look, well, 70% of them get a quote and you close 12% of them. Like you're wasting so much human capital in the rat race right now. Let's take a step back. You analyze the data and then make a good closed loop decision about where should you spend your dollars. I'd rather buy 10 leads and close 8 of them and spend $100 a lead, then get 100 leads, spend $30 a lead and close 10 of them. Like it's not going to work.
Yeah, totally.
Well, talk to me a little. So Jordan, I want to learn a little bit about like, how do we get started and who's doing it well right now? If you want to give maybe a shout out or a couple of other good examples, and then let's give some guidance about how do I know how closed my loop is today, and then how do I start bridging the gap?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's this great company called ClientTether. I'm not sure if you've heard of them before.
Oh no. Tell me more. You're hilarious.
Yeah. So first step is to actually make sure you are tracking leads successfusly. So, have a CRM in place, have a system in place. You are not going to be able to do this if you're still using Google Sheets, if you're still, using just like any rinky dinky non-software system. So you need to make sure that is in place first.
Can I add a caveat on that? And it's got to be universally deployed.
Yes.
Because you might say, and a lot of guys, and let's talk Salesforce for a minute, or other CRMs, right? All these other tools that are built for software, enterprise sales that are being jammed into franchising. The biggest challenge that I see, besides the fact that they don't fit and they're crazy expensive and they're lacking the data architecture is, and that's a bag, so I'll move on quickly, is people hate them because it's like a medical record management system, so they won't use them. And so if you've got a technology deployed that's not serving your franchisees, and you've got 30, 40, 50% of the people using it, I would say CRM, yes, but you've got to make sure it's got a universal deployment, or else your data is going to be impartial, or it's going to be partial and imperfect.
Totally. And to that point, like on the topic of making sure you're collecting data, actually make sure you're collecting data on that front end, right? So everything prior to, form or lead submission or phone call, make sure you are actually tracking that, right? Google Analytics, free option. I typically recommend all my clients using it. You don't need Adobe tracking. You don't need any custom software right now. Just make sure you're actually collecting this data in a clean and efficient way, right? Because the saying of garbage in, garbage out really holds true with this. So if you're collecting crap data, then you're going to be making crappy decisions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we get, we've got the top of funnel marketing analytics in place. We get some sort of platform in place that's a CRM that can track now the lead data once it's converted. Now, what are the next steps in closing the loop?
Yeah, so it's actually connecting these two systems together from your analytics software into your CRM. So typically talking about GA, which is a decently universally used system, is you're actually sending your CID data, which essentially stands for cookie ID data, from your website to your CRM software. So for those who don't know, and to get super geeky here, essentially your CID is a cookie ID that Google Analytics has for each person that visits your site. So it's like this little file that's installed on your browser that tracks and has information about everything that you did on the website, where you visited from, what you did on the website, how many pages you visited, when you converted, all this like gold nuggets of information. So by saving this little tracking snippet code in your CRM software, you'll then be able to actually ping GA back once specific events happen. So for example, going back to a qualified lead, once a lead has been deemed as a sales qualified, you can ping GA back and say, hey, ding, this person is actually sales qualified. And then you'll be able to see that data in Google Analytics. And then when a lead actually closes into a customer, ding again. And again, you're able to see that information within GA. And then that just kind of feeds the beast, if you will, into understanding, again, what channels are converting, which channels are generating revenue, which channels are driving profitable revenue, and all of this all these gold nuggets of information.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you can push back into GA. You can push essentially the status of the lead, and you can push in the dollar value of the lead. Is there anything else that you can push back in? Because Google Analytics isn't like a CRM in any stretch, but what else can you push in that people might want to track?
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to kind of structure GA from a closed loop system is mirroring events and kind of conversions within GA based on your actual sales funnel, right?
Yeah.
So from a very high level, most, service franchises, they're going to have lead, they're going to have a sales qualified lead event of some sort. Is this actually a qualified lead? You're going to have quoted, and then you're going to have closed. So by having all these events kind of fire from your CRM back into GA, again, sitting on a gold mine of information, that's when you can actually take genuine, actionable steps.
Yeah, informed decisions to say, let's stop doing competitive acquisition, search word targeting, because those leads don't convert at all, right?
Totally.
Cool. Well, any experiences you could share, like who's doing it well right now, or and maybe even if you have any funny stories about who's not doing it well, like something you stumbled into, you're like, holy crud, what have you done? I would love to hear about an example of both.
Who's doing it well right now? We have a few, one in the finance and kind of B2B space, again, different from the one that I alluded to earlier. And, they just recently started closing that loop. And, their primary acquisition channel has actually been Facebook. So as I mentioned before, being able to feed not just these audiences, but actually feeding revenue data back in, we have been able to actually track how, profit has been going, and moving away from these, like unqualified leads into focusing and actually reporting on sales quality. It's been amazing actually being able to have genuine and informed conversations with, you know, this franchisor and even these franchisees, in showing them, hey, like things are actually going along, things are doing well.
Can you tell me about that? So most people, at least I assume most people in a B2B franchise sector would assume Facebook's not a good channel. But I think I'm probably wrong there. Like because since you're not being specific, do you mind sharing, like, what did they find? Did they find that that was a good place to put dollars, or did they find that that actually wasn't the most effective, they should pivot to something else?
So it's interesting. So the audiences, as a whole channel, they've found Facebook very effective, both before and after. But what has really kind of been the game changer is how they go about acquiring and targeting these people. So what I mean by this is by us understanding, you know, what is a sales qualified lead, what does a good customer actually look like, we're able to actually refine from like a demographic perspective, from a technological perspective, from a interest perspective. Where are these people hanging out? What are they doing? So as a result, targeting has improved significantly. So even though they've actually seen a decrease in lead volume, the quality has actually significantly improved, because we're now able to say, you know, yes, Instagram was driving a lot of leads, but they weren't good quality. Or mobile was driving very poor leads, but a lot of them, but again, poor quality. So let's focus in on desktop and find out what we can do to improve actual volume there, where they're actually qualified.
Yeah, that's actually really smart, because you have all the data. I was looking at it the other day on our back end, and I thought, I have not considered my technology platform, and I really need to splice that down a little bit and then see, all right, which one's working best. Does it make sense to open up some display ads, because mobile's really productive for us? Let's open up some display ads, because those are, you know, obviously predominantly on mobile. And so yeah, but I'm asking the right questions, and now I need to make sure I'm closing my loop. I need to talk to our guys and see how they're evaluating that, and see if I can make a technology channel decision that might make our spend go a little further and get a little more result.
Totally. And what's great is, like, in this specific scenario, you know, we can apply it across platforms as well, right? Now that we know, all right, mobile is bad, we need to be doing desktop. You know, if we want to expand to YouTube, if we want to expand to display, we already know to exclude mobile as a device and only focus in on desktop. So you're seeing almost like this compounding effect on the insights that you're able to gather once you close that loop.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and you tie into that as well, your audience building, lookalikes, it just gets further and further narrowed. When I consult people, I talk to them about their watering holes. And what you're doing is you're creating a self-correcting watering hole targeting strategy, where the data continues to feed the system, and you get more and more narrowed until you're like, oh, every time I shoot, I kill a beast, right? And, you know, in the watering hole mentality, it's gonna, if you look at your franchisees from a franchisor perspective, one of the things we don't consider a lot in marketing strategy is time allotment. And so this is increasingly critical, because especially in like home service franchises, where you might have crews or teams out working, but you're usually a solopreneur running the business, or maybe 2 or 3 team members helping to run a business. Like you brought up 2 maids, or the Maids International, like home cleaning or painting or flooring, they're lightly staffed. So if we're amping up marketing, but we're producing low quality leads, we're actually hurting them more than if we were to produce fewer leads in general, just because we're tying up their time. So
exactly.
I love it. Smart.
Awesome.
Jordan, tell me, do you have any funny stories? Anything to part on of, boy, like this sure was ridiculous, and then we got things sorted out? I would love, just if you don't, that's okay. I don't want you to embarrass anybody, so please don't share any names. But you and I both probably have dozens of these stories we could share.
You know what? Nothing specific comes to mind right now. I'd love to share a story, but I'm blanking out here, Dave. I apologize.
I've got one, and this is actually about closing the loop. And it was actually a dealership. It wasn't a franchise, but I'll be really brief. So we had a dealership we were working with, and they were generating leads from corporate, passing them to the franchisee or the dealer actually, and then the dealer was supposed to be following up and closing the deals. Well, they were using ClientTether obviously, because that's how I know this story. And the corporate team was the guy was complaining to the corporate team saying, "Hey, I'm not making any money on these leads that you're sending to me. I don't really want to pay for them anymore." So our team looked at it and they said, the automation sequences that have fired off, just this, text, call, email, they've converted 4 leads for you already, and they're just waiting for you to reply back. Like, they've asked for you to schedule a time with them, and this is an example of, it was a closed system, but he wasn't engaged in the closed system, and so he didn't even know what was going on. So the dealer development guy said, I'm going to call him right now and chewed him out and said, "Look, get in here and just," it was $10,000 a business that the system had automatically closed for him. All he had to do was just like log in and then follow up. Now, he's an avid user today in the system because it closes the loop, and they know that, okay, these leads are performing because they're closing business from these leads that we're pushing down to them. This is actually through Facebook. This is one of the first times where I saw significant results in Facebook marketing, and it started to change my mind a little bit about how viable the platform was. But they realized everyone started doing Facebook campaigns because they were closing when you close the loop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. 10K just sitting there waiting to be taken. Oh, must have been just like kicking himself after that.
Yeah, he got a few kicks. And you know how it is. You've got to be a little tender as you're bringing these things up as the supplier. You probably see it all the time where people they're not behaving well, and it's causing data integrity issues or problems downstream. And you're like, well, I don't know how to approach this, but let me educate you about what's happening with your own franchisees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jordan, this has been great. So the couple of notes that I've taken and I'll share as well, are about how to close the system, tying whatever CRM you're using to your marketing platforms and marketing efforts, so you can get the feedback going. Within Facebook, it sounds like you can also create the closed loop where you can be pushing audience profile lookalike data back into the system, and that's going to help you refine your targeting as well. And then obviously making sure that as you're doing the targeting, it's going to help you focus on narrowing your demographic data, your interests and lookalike data, your device level information of like which device or technology platform are people performing well on, and more. So I think you've given us a ton of great nuggets. Anything else you'd want to add before we wrap up?
Close the dang loop. Please close the loop. Oh my gosh, please close it.
Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jordan. I appreciate you.